end up accidentally summoning a monster. Just girly things. It promises to grant their wishes for the low price of human body parts. Hi, welcome to my channel. Today we are going to be doing fall reading recommendations. Is it already October? Yes. Do all of these books take place during fall? No. For me, when I think of fall vibes, I think witches, fantasy, vampires, definitely fae. Fae kind of seem more fall, winter to me, but I guess it depends with like the courts and stuff. When they have certain books have the autumn, winter, spring, and summer courts, so I guess it could be any season. But first we're gonna start with the nonfiction. I only have one book in here, and that is Monster, She Wrote: The Women Who Pioneered Horror and Speculative Fiction. It's like a little biographies of different authors. For each author, you're given like a little reading list. So it's very helpful if you have no idea where to start with horror and speculative fiction. And next, of course, we're going to the one, the only, Dark Academia. My first book is A Study in Drowning, which is a YA. Trigger warning for SA. I'm gonna say this book is definitely not for everyone. I mean, no book is for everyone. I feel like pace-wise, this can be kind of like annoying because it feels like nothing's happening, but I really enjoyed it. This is about an architecture student named Effie who wins this contest to decorate the manor of her favorite author, and when she gets there, things are a lot weirder and darker than she expected. And there's also another student there who is like her rival, so we're seeing the rivals to lovers maybe, and they have to kind of unravel this mystery, sort of survive the chaos. This book uses something which I really enjoy, which is water as a trauma motif, imagery, symbolism. I don't know what the right term is, but like using water to describe trauma, which is used throughout the book, and it just really sets the atmosphere of like just this whole book. This book is hard to describe because everything I want to talk about is a spoiler. Our next book is My Dearest, Darkest, which is a YA horror sapphic book about a girl who named Finch who transfers to this elite academy while dealing with some trauma. Just your average trauma of having died apparently, but then you somehow came back to life, but your parents who were in the same accident you were did not come back to life, and now there's some weird things happening. Something ancient is trying to get her attention. And then on the other side we have Selena St. Clair, who thinks there's something seriously wrong with Finch. Is she wrong though? They keep ending up at the same place. Her, Finch, and Selena's friends end up accidentally summoning a monster. Just girly things. And it promises to grant their wishes for the low price of human body parts. The price keeps getting higher, and Finch and Selena has to team up and stop the monster before it destroys the island. And next we have mystery. First book is A Dreadful Splendor, which is a historical fiction. This takes place in Victorian London, and we follow our main girl, who's a fake, what do you call her? Spiritualist, clairvoyant. This is a time of spiritualism and all the talking to the dead around a crystal ball. You know, that time. Is there a crystal ball involved? You know, when all the people are like sitting around a table. So she's a fake spiritualist, and her con is basically just scamming rich people out of money and maybe stealing some of their belongings. Which, I mean, it's Victorian London. She doesn't have a lot of options. Eventually she ends up in jail, and she gets an offer. She helps this guy grieving his dead fiance, and if she performs a seance to like bring him peace, she'll have a get out of jail free card, basically. So she gets there, but then things are weird because this guy is not grieving. He's like, I think someone murdered my fiance, and you're gonna help me figure it out. We're gonna stage a fake seance to try to get a reaction out of the killer. I have knowledge of the house and all the people in the house, and you know how to like con people. So together we can solve this murder mystery. Strange things start to happen that seem like maybe there's actually a ghost in this manor. Next we have the Agathas, which is it's a YA book about two teen girls solving a murder mystery. What more could you want? We have Alice, who is having a bit of a time. She went missing for a couple of days, and no one really knows what happened. She's not talking about it, and she's like burned a bunch of bridges with like her ex-boyfriend Steve and all her ex-best friends. She's kind of a loner right now. But then her ex-best friend goes missing, and she was also dating Steve. So things aren't looking good for Steve. Your ex-girlfriend goes missing for a couple days, and now your new girlfriend is missing. Maybe dead. And then we have our other main girl, Iris, who is just kind of looking for a way out of the town she's living in. Is Alice's tutor, and then the girl who went missing, Brooke, her grandmother like has a reward out for her. So Iris is like, oh, I'll team up with Alice to get this reward money, and I'll find out what really happened to her friend and prove Steve's innocence. So they're like, let's work together, and who better to help us solve a mystery than the Queen of Mysteries, Agatha Christie. Alice has a collection of her books, and she's like, well, I've read like all of these, so obviously I can solve the mystery. I'm not quite sure that's how it works out, but read and find out. Next we have creepy, scary. First we have There's No Way I'd Die First, which is a YA horror. So our main character, Noelle, yes, I got the name right, runs a horror movie club, and she wants to like expand her brand. She wants to go to film school, and she wants to like, you know, have an edge with all the other competition. And so she decides to throw this big Halloween bash with all of her influencer friends. Bunch of money spent, except for we decide to go low budget on the killer clown, which, if there's anything we shouldn't go low budget on, I think it would be the it clown. This hired killer clown seems to be taking his job a little bit too seriously. Hence the slasher of it all. If you find like influencer teenage talking about their followers and cryptocurrency and podcasts and stuff super annoying, this book is probably not for you, but I think it was done well. It wasn't, I feel like there's definitely a lot cringier out there. The next one is What Stalks Among Us, which is a YA fantasy horror. Two teens who are like, I don't want to go to my high school graduation senior trip, so why don't we ditch and just drive around? And they're driving, and all of a sudden they see a corn maze, which is weird because it's not fall. And they're like, why don't we look into this? Which is the opposite of what I would do, but okay. So they go into the maze, they're walking around, and, you know, something weird happens. They find two bodies murdered. But what's even weirder than the two murdered bodies is these bodies look an awful lot familiar. They seem to be themselves. So now they're definitely freaking out. So this book is a little timey-wimey, a little Jeremy Bearimy. Two teens trapped in a corn maze, and they keep finding their bodies. Okay, next we have fantasy magic. First up, we have Half a Soul, which is a fantasy historical romance. This book gets compared to Bridgerton and Howl's Moving Castle. This is about a girl named... Is it Dora? Yeah, Dora. I'm gonna assume that's right. Who, when she was younger, was cursed by a fae to only have half a soul. She said the title. We're in like Regency era, obviously, because Bridgerton, London, so obviously reputation is very important, and her having half a soul, she doesn't really feel things like other people do, so she has a habit of getting into scandals. And so she's with her cousin, and they travel to London to try to get her cousin married, and she's just trying to like avoid scandals so she doesn't ruin her cousin's reputation. And she ends up meeting this wizard named Elias, I really want to say, who also doesn't have the best reputation. And he's like the magician, and her cousin's like, hey, maybe he could like help you store your soul. And so the two end up starting to like work together, and maybe a romance happens. It's just really cute, really sweet. I really liked all the relationships between all the characters and kind of how the story ends. I thought it was really good. Next we have a Far Wilder Magic. Trigger warning for mommy issues. Jews and anti-Semitism and anti-Catholic. I think specifically Irish Catholic. I could be wrong about that though. The religions and the like lands are like called by different names, but it's kind of easy to figure out what's going on. So this is the story of a girl named Maggie and a boy named Wes. In this world there are alchemists, and Maggie's mother is an alchemist, and she's like always gone. She's always on work trips. She's never home. So there's this hunt that occurs for this, is it like a fox creature? And one day Maggie encounters it and she gets like really close to it and stuff, which is more than other people do. And so she's like, oh, if I can win this contest and win this magical fox thing, then my mom will come home and she'll be like proud of me. On the other side, we have Wes, who definitely has ADHD, relatable. He's been kicked out of like all of his apprenticeships with alchemists. He's on his like last chance, so he goes to Maggie's town to get an apprenticeship with Maggie's mom, but again, she's not there. Maggie's the only one there. After some convincing, they decide, well, we'll work on the hunt together. We'll catch this thing and it'll bring your mom home and it'll prove that I can be a good apprentice. And so they enter this trial. Next, we have books I actually own. An Enchantment of Ravens. Beautiful cover. This also has fae in it, but they are more like the kind of fae I like to read about, because I find it annoying when the fae are basically like, I don't know, some authors, like, I'm not gonna name any names, but if you know who I'm talking about, you know who I'm talking about. They kind of write them as almost like vampires, except for the blood drinking, so like hot, immortal guys with like pointed ears. I like when people actually do more with the fae and talk about like the telling the truth, so they say things in a very meandering ways and being capricious, and the courts like I mentioned earlier, and then being like made of like nature, like twigs or ice, or being like uncanny valley, I guess, in a way, like too beautiful to look at, or like giving you this unsettling feeling because you just feel wrong around them. They're almost like too beautiful kind of thing. So this has more of that kind of vibe. In this world, the fae can't make anything. They can't craft, which would be my nightmare. They can't paint, they can't make outfits, so they rely on humans for crafts, but obviously working with fae is dangerous, and you gotta be very careful or you're gonna get yourself cursed or killed. So Isabel is a portrait artist for the fae, the fair folk. Also, again, the naming of calling them the good folk or the fair folk, because like you call the furies the kindly ones. I just love that. Her first royal patron, named Rook, the Autumn Prince, Autumn, she makes a mistake. She draws some emotion in his eyes. Mortal sorrow. A weakness that could cost him his life. And he's super mad, and he kidnaps her to stand trial for her crime. But weird things are happening in his world, and they keep getting attacked, and they have to help each other out, maybe fall in love. But if mortal sorrow is forbidden, love is definitely forbidden. So yeah, it's a nice autumnal artsy forest book. I really loved the point of view of an artist because the way she described everything, the colors and the imageries, I knew exactly what she was talking about, and it was just so cool to see things described that way and to see the world through her eyes. Next we have Sorcery of Thorns. Wow. Another beautiful cover and same author. Oops. Oh, also, these are both standalone. Actually, this one has a novella, but you can read it as a standalone. I have a joke, but I can't tell it because it's a spoiler. So, in this world, all sorcerers are evil. Elizabeth has known that as long as she has known anything. Raised as a foundling in one of Ostermere's great libraries, Elizabeth has grown up among magical grimoires that rattle beneath iron chains, capable of transforming into grotesque monsters. When an act of sabotage releases the library's most dangerous grimoire, Elizabeth is accused of treason. With no one to turn to but her sworn enemy, the sorcerer Nathaniel Thorne, and his mysterious servant, she finds herself entangled in a centuries-old conspiracy. Not only could the great libraries go up in flames, but the world along with them. So we got some magical books that turn into monsters, a rivalry with a sorcerer, maybe a rivalry that the other person has no idea is happening, a sorcerer and his servant, which maybe reminds me of Bruce and Alfred a bit. I might be the only one that thinks that. Our final category is graphic novels. First, we have the Tea Dragon Society, which is a middle grade fantasy. I feel like tea fits with fall, warm beverages. I can't drink hot beverages. They make me sick. I don't know why. Well, this is basically about these little tea dragons who are kind of like a dying thing, and our main character finds one and decides to like nurse it back to health with these shop owners and their adopted child, and this found family tea pet sweetness. And then finally we have Garlic and the Vampire, another middle grade fantasy about this witch who has a garden of vegetables that are all like living. Vegetables are alive. Anthropomorphized? No. Maybe anthropomorphized? I don't know. They're like living, talking vegetables. And we have Garlic, our main character, who's an anxious bulb. In her town, a vampire has just moved in, and all the vegetables and the witch are freaking out because vampires, what are his evil intentions? And so they're like, somebody has to go talk to him and find out what he's doing here. And of course they send Garlic because vampires can't stand garlic, right? And so that is our list of fall recommendations. And I will see you soon.